Interesting hotel fact. The Bellagio's room count, 3,950, is more than the head count in the Lake Como village for which it is named.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's No Vacancy podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. Man, am I excited to have you back here as, believe it or not, we are approaching our 3-year anniversary, which will be, I think, at the end of this month. I can't believe it either. You guys have been listening for 3 years, and I want to thank you so much for listening each and every week to our 150-plus shows. And, of course, if you haven't caught any of our other shows on the No Vacancy Networks, check out the Hotel Tech Podcast, the Hotel Design Podcast, the Business of Hotels Podcast, and, of course, checking in with Anthony and Glenn, which I do with Travel Channel's Anthony Melchiori. Always a lot of great interviews on there. You're going to love that show. All right, I am in Vegas again. It's been 2 whole weeks since I've been here, and I cannot believe it. I've been on the road now for months and months and months, and this is my last big trip for a while. I think I'm home for a good 3 weeks after this, so I'm going to be excited to recover, assuming I live through this event. I'm not sure I am going to live because I'm here in Vegas with the one and only Mr. Bruce Ford. How are you, sir?
Glenn, I'll keep you alive in my Mach 5. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the hotel industry will circle around New York for a few weeks, and then we'll be off into almost early summer. So I heard it may stop raining in New York sometime in the next couple days.
So landing here in Las Vegas, it's 84 degrees. It was 45 and rainy and gross when I left this morning. So, I had on full hoodie going on, but when I went here, I was wishing I was wearing shorts.
So much of the world is focused on New York as the Men's Golf PGA Championship is at Bethpage this week.
It is at Bethpage this week, and I'm such a huge golf fan that
Tiger Woods.
That I noticed when I was driving the Southern State Parkway in Long Island that they had lots of temporary signs put up with all the places you could go park. So.
Yeah.
That's how much I follow.
It's kind of a big deal. The PGA Championship has been in August for many, many years. Not for forever, but now it's in May.
Oh.
And it's at Bethpage this year. It's the first year it's back in May in probably 20 years.
Now, Bethpage is a very well-known golf course.
Yep,
it?
They've had the U.S. Open
there.
They've had the Barclays tournament there, and it's a public course that they have a pro championship on. So that's kind of one of the calling cards, if you will.
If I actually like golf, that would be really cool for me to go and play.
They have a sign out, and the sign's kind of a deal. It said for expert golfers only. Oh, well, yeah. So if you're a beginner, Glenn, which we all know you are, it's not for you.
First of all, I did golf as a kid, for a little bit, but when I got something like 376 on the par 3 course, I figured maybe it was time to hang up the clubs.
Well, yes, you should probably put those away, but Bethpage is a place I haven't played. It's legendary for its stories, and not the point of what we're talking about today, but at the end of the day, the hotel industry is going around to New York, coming up soon enough, and the conference season is winding down as we approach Memorial Day.
Yes, and I can't wait till the NYU Hospitality Investment Conference at the very beginning of June because I love the amount of great content that I could bring all of you. Man, last year I was able to feed off of it all summer long, so while I was hanging out in my pool, I already had those great interviews in the can.
Well, there'll be a lot of interviews for sure. I mean, the industry is abuzz, Glenn. We've had a merger very recently with Park Hotel REIT buying Chesapeake. Also, we have lots of other rumblings. We have a new brand from IHG that I think we'll all hear about very, very soon here. And
we're going to get into all of this kind of stuff. I don't want to, blow our conversational something until I got to keep the general rating anyway. Before we continue, I do want to thank the good folks at Almo Hospitality for being such a great sponsor of this program. So reshape your expectations of what an FF&E distribution partner for hospitality should be. I want all of you to make Alamo Hospitality your go-to partner to simplify your FF&E deployments for the guest room and beyond. With industry-leading brands, the latest hospitality trends, and distinctive new-to-market brands coupled with their specialized business development and hospitality-dedicated sales team. I love these guys at Alamo. They are such good people. They will get you the best deals, and they make your lives easier.
So is that ALMOhospitality.com?
That is.
Glenn?
Yeah, Alamo Hospitality is a division of Alamo Corporation, and they're the largest independent distributor of professional AV, consumer electronics, major appliances, outdoor furniture, and housewares. That's why you get to see that awesome Samsung ad I have in my newsletter each and every week. Please support them if you like this show. Because that'll give us the ability to keep this coming at you every single week. So, Bruce, before we get into the mergers part of it, we are in Vegas and down the strip a little bit over at Venetian Palazzo as we're recording this on Monday. What's today's? The 13th. IHG held an under embargo press conference today to announce their all new upper mid-scale all suites brands, of which I missed the press conference because I was flying here and I missed the whole thing. So I don't know the name. I don't know the logos. I don't know the artwork. I know none of the specifics, but that is not going to stop me from talking about this brand.
Well, the key part is, Glenn, is that it's likely to be all suite with an extended stay tilt, which is one of the most popular spaces in the hotel business today. Extended stay development is rapidly growing.
Upper mid-scale.
Okay. So, right now, extended stay, I think for the first time ever, has the highest, number of projects in the pipeline that we've seen in quite a long time.
It is unbelievable. You've told me my favorite statistic on stage is 1/4 of the entire new construction pipeline is indeed extended stay, Bruce.
Well, there you go. It's probably going to go up, Glenn. If it isn't 27 this quarter,
it's got to go up.
Not sure that I looked at it, but it's, it's a big part of what the developers want to do. It offers you, 30% more space in your guest room, the potential to be able to cook a light meal or two in your guest room, the potential to have both a living room and a sleeping room and the bathroom. It's kind of just more space, and if you travel a lot, it's got convenience wrapped all around it.
Well, it sure does. Consumers have caught on to this trend. I've been seeing it building slowly over the last 20 years. And as you know, listeners of this program, I love this segment because there's such great opportunity in it. That's why I've been talking about it virtually the entire run of this show. Before it was the hot and sexy thing, but now it really is. The customers love it. It makes it easier for you folks to run because there's less FTEs for this type of product. With labor costs increasing, consumer tastes changing, it seems to be the perfect scenario right now. And I'm going to make one of those bold predictions for years that the mid-scale select service have been the bread and butter in the industry. I'm thinking somebody needs to start slicing some loaves because I think this might be the next big thing.
Well, we have plenty of economy brands, too, in addition to the mid-scale brands. But I think what the mid-scale brands have brought is the potential to do it closer in the urban center. The economy brands don't quite work in the urban center. Math doesn't work out. But I think the upper mid-scale brands and the mid-scale brands in the urban center, you have a very viable product at close to 400 square feet in an urban center, which is what people are looking for.
And that is pretty huge. I can think of one urban center, New York, where the rooms are like, 3 square feet maybe?
Might get a different platform in New York. I'm not selling 400 square feet in New York.
No way.
At the same time, if any of you have stayed in an extended stay product in New York, and there aren't hundreds of them, but there are certainly a couple dozen.
I stayed in a Candlewood.
Yeah.
On that street with that building with all those hotels in it.
There's no 2 bedrooms, and it's a little different. But at the same time, the product offering remains very viable out there today.
Well, I'll take it one step further. Last week when I was, or 2 weeks ago when I was here in Las Vegas, just down the street over at the Mandalay Bay for Choice Hotels International Conference, their extended stay division is sizzling hot right now. I mean, they are thrilled that Woodspring acquisition they did seems to have been the right thing, and all of their extended stay brands are really taking off.
Woodspring is a very complementary product for Choice's portfolio, so there's no doubt that their developers and their franchisee would be very interested in that. I would say further that I wouldn't be surprised if Choice continues to look at other acquisition or potential brand launch
Right.
possibilities to kind of fill in the middle, if you will, because you have now Woodspring, Mainstay,
Right.
and then Cambria.
Everybody's
Cambria is
looking.
not extended stay, but it is certainly
Right.
along the lines of that.
Everybody's looking for the term that they say is white space. Where can they
Yep.
fill in that white space?
And
right?
they have the Comfort Suites that kind of fits in there, but Comfort Suites not really
It's not really an extended
either
stay.
a traditional extended
Right,
stay.
right. For sure. Another big merger we had in this same kind of universe is Water Walk Apartments, and we did a great interview with the folks over at Water Walk, I think about 6 weeks ago now. So check the catalog to check out that particular show. They just announced a big deal with Oakwood, which is a premier service apartment provider, to create Water Walk by Oakwood, which I think is an interesting thing. That's going to open up the development doors for Jack DeBoer's latest company, and I think that is a very exciting move, and it's starting to bring together those alternative accommodation worlds that I've been talking about so much on this show. I see the industry is, we're predicting this transformation that's happening every single day that goes by. I'm seeing more building blocks for it to come to fruition.
There's no question that alternative lodging is a compelling space, and people want larger spaces when they go to a particular city. There's always been that potential. When you think about Airbnb, some people say, well, I wouldn't stay there. Not many people say that they wouldn't stay there. But as a guy who travels a lot myself and being a hotel industry executive, I would tell you that I have concerns about staying
Right.
at Airbnb, but I'd feel better about it if it was a notable brand putting their stamp on it.
Right, and again, not no surprise here if you listen to the show. I am totally cool with staying in Airbnb in places that are on Airbnb, but are not what we colloquially think as an Airbnb product. That's why I like when companies like Sonder, for example, that I've talked about on this show, that rent full apartments that nobody lives in. Those appeal to me because they're run by professional organizations.
Yeah, and I don't travel with enough people to need to consider an apartment. I'm very used and adapted to the hotel.
Right.
I like to have the services in the hotel. I get a lot of value out of that because my day is jammed and crammed with all kinds of stuff when I'm on the road and kind of need the services.
Right.
But in many cases, I am not a traditional traveler. I would say I'm in the 3%, like you are, Glenn, of hotel industry people traveling in the hotel industry.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat there with some friends today, and we talked about, one of my questions I always talk about, which is how many different brands do you think you stayed in last year? And my number last year was 44.
Right.
Different brands.
Yeah,
but when you talk to a lot of hotel industry people, they get slotted into their chain scale and they can't even consider staying in a mid-scale property because they're just too used to luxury and upper upscale.
Wow, I envy those people.
But I take it as a mission, as I've said before, to stay in a lot of different brands because we track these brands at Lodging Econometrics. We monitor them, and I want to feel like I've had the experience and that I understand kind of what's offered there and what the differentiation is because everybody asks me.
One person at a particular hotel company that's a major franchising organization told me that they're required to stay at specific brands within their portfolio depending on what level executive you are, right? Now, to me, for certain employees, that makes sense. But to limit those that might be able to influence the further trends of your company, I think that it locks you in. I think that they should be encouraging stays at other brands to best inform themselves on what the competition is up to. And I think that'll lead to better innovation. At least if it was my hotel company, that's what I would be doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's different inside the company with people who are traveling employees versus people that are staff that, by the way, they go on the road a couple weeks a year because of things we need to do inside the company. That's a different thing. And
agreed. I'm not saying it's that thing. I'm saying it's like the people that we mingle with in our event circles are the ones that are the influencers and the drivers of stuff. And I think that
you and I are both
limited.
Small business guys, Glenn. When
Yeah.
you get into big corporations, the way they book things are different.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I can't remember the last time I booked a hotel that wasn't on a brand.com kind of experience. or in the case of this week is, I'm getting it through a booking engine from the person that's hired me to be here.
Right.
So at the same time, that's untraditional, and again puts us in that 3%. But some people out there book hotels like thinking Expedia is a hotel brand.
Right. Yeah.
And that's, their interface, because they don't identify necessarily with Hilton's brands or Marriott's brands or IHG brands. They don't identify with that.
Right.
And so in one way, owners, it's, that's what makes Expedia and those third-party vendors good, is because they can aggregate those things, and you want to set yourself apart. And you know what your marketing is, and you know what your appearance is, and you know what your digital experience is, and that's a big part of what you're trying to do, if in fact you are selling rooms through those third-party vendors at a higher percentage.
Right.
You're always looking to change that.
Yeah, well, yes, you are always looking to change that. And one way to wean yourself off that are with these extended stay properties is by virtue of people staying longer for a good mix of that business. You don't have to put out as many rooms on there. And a lot of times that longer term business will come from other sources as well. I wanted to just try to wrap that up into a nice little bow. I know you, Bruce, want to talk about a couple of the big mergers that are happening right now on the real estate side of the universe, which is your playground.
Well, Park Hotels and Resorts has made an acquisition. They announced last week that they will purchase Chesapeake Lodging Trust for about, so I'm not going to remember exactly what it was, but it's not the point. Park Hotels has not really been in the acquisition business since they were spun out of Hilton. They've selectively looked at things,
right.
So this is definitely...
This is their first time doing an acquisition that has a non-Hilton branded properties.
Yeah, and that's significant. Obviously,
is it significant other than it being an emotional kind of reaction, because it's something that they would have had to have done if they were going to continue to grow as a company? They're not going to, now that they're separated from that entity, they're not going to lock themselves into only owning real estate that has those flags on it. It
was only a matter of time,
right?
Is really the way I would say it, because
it's good. That's just
there are opportunities out there, because there are some people who are looking at their portfolio and saying, now that Marriott and Starwood are merged, I'm overexposed with Marriott and I need to do something else.
Right. Yeah.
So that's happening out there, and that's going to evolve over the next few years. I mean, we're still not even 2 years since the merger, and so that's going to continue to evolve. And I constantly talk to people who question, why would I do a Marriott brand? Because. And I said, hey, look, they're the 100-pound gorilla in the room. There's no question about that. But they're still cuddly. They still generate a very high rate of return, and each individual real estate investment is different. So, at the same time, you're evaluating it in that model, but there are a lot of attractive brands out there. And at the end of the day, Glenn, there's been 88 new brands since the beginning of 2015.
That's insanity.
88 new brands saying we're putting a flag in America.
Woo!
I mean, that's all over the chain scales. That's not just luxury or upper upscale. It's really all over the chain scales, and that speaks to the health of the industry and really the 10 years of demand growth that we've experienced.
It's really it's fabulous. What do you consider a brand?
So a brand, if they come out and say, we're going to build this hotel like this and we're looking to replicate that. Okay, so it doesn't mean it's recognized as a brand in terms of it's in a chain scale, because you have to have operating assets. But in that 87 I spoke about, there's both international brands that are coming to the United States for the first time.
Right.
Think Hotel Ibis. Okay.
Hey, we just got one at LaGuardia, my friend.
You've seen it.
It's right next to my Air Park parking.
Sorry, it's not just, Glenn. It's more than a year old, but
I know.
I'll let you get away with that.
I know. It's been there for a while. Okay. And it's attached to another hotel as well.
So you're going to see more of that. Again, that's a good example of an international brand coming to the United States for a first time. But then brands announced in the U.S. that are both, there's two really types. There's a smaller company that seeks to put a new brand on the map for them, and then there's, the big players, Hilton, IHG, Marriott, Hyatt, that are doing these that are doing these new brands that, coming out of a big company, it's a different model.
Right. Yeah.
And so with 80, 88, 87, 88, I mean, the Oakwood Waterwalk would be 88, and the IHG thing would be 87. So, I mean, in the model that we're in right now, it's going to keep happening.
Of course it's going to keep happening. The reason why I ask you these questions is because, a good friend of the show, Gary Eisenberg, with whom I co-host the Business of Hotels podcast with, he determines at LWH Advisors that it's 4 units before they consider it a brand. I know we're just talking semantics, but it's just
I don't disagree with that at all.
Right. It's just interesting to look at what people are considering.
Because when somebody puts a concept forward, okay, and they want to replicate that concept, it starts there, okay? But obviously you have to have operating units to really get where you're speaking about. So additionally, Glenn, we've hit a couple of high watermarks in the industry in terms of new construction projects.
I know. I want to talk about those new construction projects, and we're already deep into the show because we want to talk about some markets and stuff in particular. But I have to say, we're sitting here in a hotel room in Las Vegas at the Park MGM. You walked around the property for a little bit. Now we're up in the rooms recording this show. I had that great interview that ran last month here on No Vacancy with Patrick Miller, the president and CEO of this property, who shepherded the change from Monte Carlo over to here. I want to know your initial impressions of the Park MGM and how you think it compares to the Monte Carlo and how it fits in the big picture on the Las Vegas Strip.
Well, it isn't anything like the Monte Carlo.
Right.
It's completely different. I think the way MGM is marketing this side of the street, and they do own several hotels in a row, and I'm down at the Mandalay, and this being the end of the MGM.
Several hotels in a row. They have Mandalay, Luxor, Excalibur, New York, here at the Park MGM, and then City Center. Then there's Cosmo, which is not them. Then Bellagio. So
and you have MGM Grand
right across
on
the street.
Corner.
Yeah.
So you can go on for quite a while.
Yeah.
Okay. I will tell you 2 things that I noticed. The first thing that I noticed is that just about every finish has been remade inside the hotel. Okay. And kudos to MGM for executing on that. My walk over on the park in MGM, the experience was good. The shuttle, the tram over.
Yep.
You can take the tram from Mandalay to Excalibur, walk across the street into New York, through the casino, and you're into the park. That experience was great, but my phone still recognizes the Wi-Fi when I got here, Glenn.
Oh, that's very convenient.
I didn't have to re-sign in, and it carried all the way over.
That's awesome.
So that's good.
I like that,
and I knew you would.
Yeah.
So I brought it up.
Yeah. So hundreds of $1 million spent here, and you take away consistent.
Well,
Wi-Fi.
those are a couple things, but I would say about the experience in the casino, it's worth coming to look because the eatery options, including an Eatly, are also available here at the Park MGM, and I'm excited to go try them out. I would say that the food and beverages add a completely new level.
It's awesome.
Here.
I'm really feeling this place. I enjoyed it. Check out that interview I did with the CEO of this particular property. I think you'll really enjoy it. If you're a hotel geek like I am, it is going to be so much fun. So Bruce, let's talk about those markets and what's going on right now with those markets.
So Glenn, we're in I'm not going to say an unprecedented run, but we certainly have many new project announcements, a direct result of the 88 brands I talked about that have been announced since 2015. So the new project announcements that are coming in today are talking about openings in 2021, 2022, 2023. When I talk to my friends that are in the supply and procurement for the hotel business, I say, even when the industry peaks out and tops off in terms of an operating performance, they are still going to see new hotel openings. They are still going to see renovations. We have had an unprecedented cycle of opportunity and an unprecedented cycle of growth. And my feeling is that the operating performance should perform through the end of this year and should perform into next year, but I cannot predict what may happen come an election time. We have some tumultuous times. I mean, we've seen just in the 2 trading days leading up to today, Glenn, we've lost 900 points in the stock market.
Yep.
That's significant. the discourse between the White House and other countries is not good. And we're talking about the global economic conditions having an impact on the hotel business. Well, I can tell you today it's not an impact, but certainly the environment is a tornado right now for sure, with a hurricane coming in.
Yep. I'm just I'm anxious as expenses continue to rise for hoteliers out there, and it's getting harder to keep pushing those rates to make up that difference.
We've talked about that, but it's not stopping hoteliers from putting projects in the market.
Especially
it's
in
not
Nashville.
stopping hoteliers from, I mean, we've got 7 markets now with over 100 projects. We have 4 with over 150 projects. And many of the openings are talking about 2021, 2022, 2023.
Right.
It is a lot of mid-scale, upper mid-scale, upscale, mid-scale, upper mid-scale, and upscale currently comprise almost 70% of the rooms in the pipeline when you consider the branded and unbranded projects. And the top 25 markets have 40% of the rooms in the new construction pipeline.
Wow.
And when you add together the top 50, it's 60%. So the high RevPAR markets, the higher revenue markets, those are where the developers are going, and rightfully so, where we sit in the marketplace today. No question that's useful. So if you have a need for any new supply information, Lodging Econometrics can always help you. Please reach out.
Yeah, and you can find them at lodgingeconometrics.com. But Bruce, so all of this new construction for so many years now, what should existing hoteliers be thinking about to maximize the profitability of their assets?
Existing hoteliers should do their renovations. Do not wait for the brand to be knocking on your door and saying, all right, I'm getting upset. We don't need anybody to get upset. There's money there to do it. You're saving in your CapEx. You should be doing the renovations, because today the opportunity that's out there, for the guest revolves around a sleep experience, and it revolves around a general experience in the hotel. And you have to consider the fact that if you haven't renovated in 4, 5, 6 years, you should be looking at what incrementally you can do.
Right, and of course that'll help you get better rates and keep customers happy, and they won't go to that new guy down the street.
Improve revenue.
Yes.
You have to drive revenue because expenses are driving you.
Yep.
So go drive the revenue bus. Keep moving it. Go over the speed limit. It's all a good idea.
All right, beautiful. All right, so I don't know. My allergies seem to be kicking in big time, which is weird because we're in a special stay well room. Actually, maybe it's just the dry air or something like that. I need to hydrate.
Yes, you need 96 ounces of water stat.
Yes. Yeah, but you know what? I think I'll finish this giant beer that I have in front of me. Man, we are in Las Vegas, and I can't believe that I've been up since 4 a.m. local time. It's now like 8 p.m. Vegas time, and I'm still wide awake. I got that Vegas energy. I do hope that I survive to the end of this week because it has been a monstrous few months on the road. And again, I want to thank everybody for all the incredible support and love that I've been getting everywhere I go around the world. This has been so exciting. And as we're approaching our 3rd year anniversary, just thank you all so much. And if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, text the word hotel to 66866. Easy enough. Text the word hotel to 66866. Now, before we go off to commercial and then our next segment, Bruce Ford, any final thoughts? And, of course, another great shameless plug.
BFINH. At BFNNH and on Twitter, Lodging Econometrics, now on Facebook, on LinkedIn, available. All the U.S. and Canada kind of brief stats are available. We're here in Las Vegas this week at the Hospitality Design Show, which are all
won't help you because it's coming out at the end of the show. And we didn't even talk about it. We were going to talk about the show.
Yeah, we were.
All right. True confession, Bruce and I decided it's better to record before a Vegas week instead on the last day of a Vegas week. The quality of the product goes down a little bit.
It's a long week, Glenn. I think we'll probably both work about 60 hours over the next 4 days, and that's the way it is.
I'll just never forget. Before, I'm sorry, this is just such a funny story. Couple of few years ago, we waited to the last day and we did a recording, and it was like me and you basically talking to a mic for half an hour. It was such a bad show. We just had to hit delete on that player. I'm so glad that we spared you. We had a good laugh, but we never made that mistake again.
For sure. So great to see you, Glenn. We'll enjoy a few cocktails this week.
Yep, and thank you all for tuning in. And remember, you are vibrating with love and light. I will see you guys soon. I'll be back, and take care of your shoes, baby. Bye.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
Hey everybody, Glenn Hausman here. There's been a lot going on at Red Roof lately. You know it, I know it, and with the introduction of their soft brand, the Red Collection, and their extended stay option, Hometown Studios by Red Roof, the world knows it. But listen, we'd be remiss if we overlooked the Red Roof brand itself. After all, Red Roof consistently offers one of the highest RevPARs in the economy segment, and has been voted best budget hotel brand by USA Today readers 3 of the past 5 years. They're careful to make sure standards reflect guest expectations, are fully tested and well priced. That's because they manage about 20% of the system, meaning they have skin in the game just like their franchisees. Then, of course, there's Red Roof Plus, the brand extension that created the upscale economy market with wood-like flooring, high-end bedding, spa-inspired baths, enhanced landscaping, and more, all based on consumer research, and all having a dramatic effect on owners' financial results. Plus, all Red Roof offerings come with Ready Rewards, a richest-in-class loyalty program with nearly 3 million members, and just happens to be the least expensive loyalty program for owners. Put it all together, and it's no surprise 86% of franchisees said they recommend Red Roof to fellow hoteliers. And those franchisees will also tell you, genuine relationships, real results. It isn't just some slogan, it's truly how Red Roof does business. Learn more by going to redrooffranchising.com or call 888-473-8861. That's redrooffranchising.com or call 888-473-8861.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the No Vacancy podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. So, one of the things that I love talking about is alternative accommodations, really getting in there and thinking about all of those different concepts that we didn't give enough credence to in the past, or perhaps just didn't even think about it. Take camping for one example. I don't really think much about camping in my day-to-day life, but one company certainly is, and that's pitchup.com. They're a brand new company that started last year, and they're really focused on this particular global camping market, which I think is absolutely fascinating. But the thing is, they don't see themselves as a hospitality company. They envision themselves as a tech company. Let's understand how that works. So I got with me the founder of the organization, Mr. Dan Yates. Dan, great to hear from you today.
Hey, great to talk to you.
All right. One thing I should let you know is I don't really like having people on the show from the UK because your accent makes you sound so much smarter, and my ego can't handle it.
Well, maybe I can do something to dispel that notion.
Well, we'll find out, right? Okay.
We'll see.
Yeah. So one of the things that I find interesting is I've been focused a little bit more on learning about more like RVs and all of that kind of stuff, and, sleeping on somebody's couches that we've been talking a lot about the number of years, but we haven't really been thinking about the global camping market. Maybe you could set the stage for us and tell us a little bit about how you see the global camping market and why you thought that this would be a place to dedicate your career to.
Sure. So I was actually brought up on a campground, which
cool.
gave me a bit of an unfair advantage at the start. But it really made me realize that as the dot-com boom was taking off, I kind of entered the workplace after university around 1999, which was really when it was starting to go absolutely crazy with a lot of the well-known companies coming into existence,
and
for example.
And a lot of companies that just completely failed right after that giant tech boom at the 1990s. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember putting some of my student loan into many companies that fell into that category.
Right.
So, still paying those ones back. But I ended up working for a company called lastminute.com, which was acquired by Travelocity, which you will be familiar with. And during my work there over 3 or 4 years, it was just sitting there at the back of my mind. Why isn't anyone doing this sector? I did actually set up my first website at my family's campground. That was around 1998, and we managed to get 50% of the bookings coming in online by 2002 when we sold
Holy
the business.
cow. That's huge. So
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that not only did that increase profitability of your family's campsite, but that was kind of like the aha moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think there was an assumption, possibly even a slight snobbery about the market, in that, here was an accommodation type which sat at more towards the kind of budget end of the spectrum, certainly in Europe. And there was possibly a feeling that, maybe the high end sections of the accommodation market, like hotels and flights and so on, should really dip their toe in the water first, and then the trend would reach other parts. Well, as far as I could see, it was the opposite. And so, as I said, we had considerable success with the family website early on. We launched a surf camera, which was because the business was right next to a very famous surfing beach in the UK, and that increased our traffic even more. And so the whole time I was at lastminute.com, I was just wondering, who's going to do this? Who's going to tackle this huge market? And I think, to your point earlier, a lot of people just don't realize how big it is. So in the UK, for example, if you look at the domestic market, there are about 25% more nights spent in a campground or what we call a caravan park,
right,
than there are in hotels for at least for holiday purposes.
Holy cow.
So, yeah, the average booking values obviously are nowhere near hotels, but in terms of the volume, that really is there. And the story is similar across most major countries. So we're looking at a global market size of about 350 million nights in Europe and about 600 million in the US.
Holy cazzoli. That is a huge amount of nights that just hasn't made it into the collective consciousness of the traditional hotelier.
Exactly. And there's a whole bunch of interesting consequences of that. For example, international tourists are really not being marketed to in our sector. That's something that's where we come in. We translated our site into 16 languages. We've made a lot of effort to try to, from the get-go, to try and make the proposition global.
Wow. So let's take a look at this. Tell me a little bit about what pitchup.com actually does. Are you just kind of more of a search engine? Are you trying to be like the Travelocity, Expedia of the camping business? What is your point of view?
Well, the original idea was to make the best possible search engine for this market.
Right.
I don't know whether you're a keen camper yourself, but you can probably guess that the features at a campground are going to be very, very different from a hotel.
Right.
So you're thinking about, for example, does the campground have 50 amp electric hookups or 30 amp? Is it pull through for your RV, or do you have to reverse out of it? There are all these very specific features that a hotel site just wouldn't be able to offer.
Personally, I'm just thinking about indoor plumbing, because that would be that's kind of what I'm looking for.
I mean, there is that too.
Yeah.
Things like chemical toilets and just a whole bunch of things. And I think we've now probably got over 100 features on our site, and most of them really are very specific to this industry. So the first idea was just to create the best possible search engine and not even think about availability and booking. But it became clear that we couldn't really find a business model in that area because there weren't enough affiliate sites. There weren't enough, bluntly, there weren't enough companies taking online bookings in the sector.
Right, which doesn't surprise me, Dan. Sorry to interrupt you, but I've found that folks that have campgrounds and RV sites and stuff, a lot of times they're still doing stuff as if it was the 1960s or 1970s. They haven't computerized anything. They're really, in a lot of ways, kind of like how some campers want to be, just completely off the grid. So that's an interesting challenge to begin with for you to kind of tackle. Yeah,
and it's certainly when we started, it felt very much like the process of booking a flight in the 1980s, 1990s, and you had that phenomenon of phoning a list of airlines or travel agents, and by the time you got to the end of the list, the one that you phoned first had already booked out. So I reckon in the UK about 10% of campgrounds at the time that we launched had online booking. So it quickly became obvious that the search engine on its own was not really going to go anywhere, and we decided we had to bite the bullet and provide online booking. So, and actually it's quite an interesting moment, because obviously having had the experience in the hotel sector, it was an opportunity to start from a blank slate and try and work out how would we do this if we were starting from scratch. Obviously, the hotel industry has a whole bunch of legacy technology and pricing methods and so on. So my idea was to try and integrate as much as possible. And we teamed up, we partnered with a company called RMS, which is a global campground booking system, which is quite prominent in the US. And we created an integration into their system, which meant that their clients were able to appear on pitchup.com basically at the click of a button and have the bookings just flow straight into their system.
Fascinating.
Now, as you can probably imagine, a lot of campgrounds just don't have booking systems. So we had to create an extranet-driven version as well. And some years on, we now have almost 50 booking systems that have the integration with us. And the majority of our clients are still on manual extranet, but they are moving over fairly rapidly now. So we've kind of achieved that original aim in that we've been able to introduce them to, in many cases, to e-commerce for the first time,
right,
but in a way that minimizes the impact on their business. Because obviously, these businesses I always think they're basically 10 businesses in one. They're a landholding to maintain, they're an administration, an office department, there are multiple leisure facilities, there are things like bars and restaurants. There's a whole bunch of businesses. So the owner managers, as they often are, tend to be incredibly busy. And so we've always tried to minimize the impact on their running the business day to day.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what we're talking about here is we're not just talking about people pitching up a tent only. We're talking about you could bring your RV, you could bring a camper, you could even if you want to have that kind of outdoorsy feel, you could rent lodges, cabins, pods, huts, campers, teepees, yurts, wigwams, domes, bell tents, all sorts of things out there, depending on what the facilities are of the individual outlet that's out there. So that, to me, opens up a world of possibility to tap into the traveler zeitgeist of today. People are traveling differently. People are expecting different things when they go away for a leisure experience. And the whole motion of getting back towards nature, even in like more of a luxury environment through glamping, for example, all of this stuff is caught on now since you first had that brainstorm in the early 2000s. So how has the market changed, and how do you feel that you guys are well positioned to create opportunity for owners of existing campgrounds and RV parks, as well as those that are thinking about getting into it in the future?
Well, I think it goes back to the point you made at the start, which is that it's just a neglected sector. A lot of people aren't that familiar with it. And there was a very interesting market study that was done in the UK a couple of years ago, which said that around 15 million trips a year are taken in this sector, so about a quarter of the population. But if you ask the question, would you be against taking a camping or caravan holiday, the proportion is only about a quarter. So you've got a potential additional market size of an extra, basically half the population of the UK, 30 million people.
Right.
And that's really the opportunity. And if you think about the way that we can help clients or parks and campgrounds unlock things like mobile booking, which is really taking off. Mobile is the majority of our bookings these days. And in the international opportunity, if you combine that with the huge innovation that's happened in the industry, you mentioned glamping, but also there's you can pretty much look at all the aspects of the industry, and there's been rising standards across the board. Everything from the quality of the facilities, the ablutions, toilets and showers and so on, through to the leisure facilities that are offered on site. It's really a completely different ballgame to what it was a generation ago.
So is the business of campgrounds and RV parks expanding, or are we just shining a light on it, or maybe a combination of both?
It's definitely expanding. Yeah. So we're seeing consistent growth in all the main markets over a sort of longer time period. And I think it goes back to what you were saying about people want to discover a new type of holiday. I mean, there are many. We always believe there are many trends, sort of macro trends, which are playing into this sector, playing into the hands of this sector.
Right.
You can mention, for example, the trend about disconnecting from people's devices and the problem a lot of parents have with kids just getting addicted to their smartphones. We are lucky to operate in a sector which is better placed than any other to address that problem by reconnecting people with nature. I mean, we have farm sites, for example. There's one in the UK where they will lend a chicken or a hen, I think it is, to the kids for a few days. So there are these great, really unique opportunities that are on offer in our sector. You've probably also seen there's been huge growth in areas like farmers markets.
Right.
And festivals is another one. And all of these trends are really underpinning the growth in the market, the camping and the caravan market, and the general, what we call the outdoor holidays market.
Right. So all of these things that you're talking about, I think the common through line is creating a sense of togetherness, right? Enhancing the bonds between family and friends. And that's something that we're losing in modern society. And I'm starting to see it in conversations that I have with people, both professionally and on personal sides, that we're yearning for that. We need that getting back to nature. We feel a sense of emptiness caused by the constant onslaught of technology. So I love what you're talking about here. Where do you see this trend going, and how effective are people connecting? Let me rephrase that last part of the question. How effective are you finding it that people are now discovering the opportunity for camping and renting teepees and yurts and that sort of a thing?
Well, I think we're one of a number of companies, not least the campgrounds themselves, who are putting a lot of effort now into online marketing. PitchUp, for example, has 6 PR agencies around the world, so we're really pushing the message about this industry, not just in the US, but we recently had an article in Italy's main newspaper. We're in the Financial Times in the UK, or globally, I suppose, on yesterday. We're in the Sunday Times on Sunday. So we're really pushing as much as we can what people can get in this market. In terms of where it might go, I think in common with many other markets, there's a great trend for specialization. You might call it horses for courses. There are many campgrounds that have all the facilities that you might want. They're kind of mini towns almost, where you have perfect fiber internet wherever you go. And yet on the other extreme, there's wild camping, where people deliberately go there to ensure there's no signal. So I think the advantage of sites like ours, sites like PitchUp, is that we can help people identify exactly what's right for them. And we always say that the combinations that you can put together on our site means that there's the ability for each person to customize their own break, to craft their own set of results that are right for them.
Right. So we have to get out of the notion that a vacation or an experience such like this is a one-size-fits-all approach. It's actually very flexible, and people can enjoy themselves in the way that appeals to their sense of connectedness to nature and adventure spirit. I always like the whole idea of soft adventure travel, where you go and you have those experiences during the day, and then you could come back and stay in a facility that has some sort of luxurious aspect to it, like in the glamping craze, or even just when it comes to having a cabin that you could rent in some of these facilities. So even for a guy like me, who's not as adventurous as someone like my producer Jeff, who rented an RV recently, went in Japan and went snowboarding and just stayed in the RV, we can both have those kinds of experiences together when connecting to the right properties through pitchup.com.
Absolutely. And so we've got, for example, experiences on vineyards where you can do wine tasting during the day and retreat to your treehouse during the evening.
Cool.
We've got health-focused resorts like yoga and so on. We've got festival, rowing festivals. We're just looking at signing up at the moment. So there really is something for everyone. And the whole idea of putting all the effort into the search at a very early stage was that we can provide that breadth of features that allow people to really identify what's right for them. So we even have in Europe, for example, we have the data on beach bathing water quality. So we've imported into our system for 20,000 beaches in Europe what the bathing water quality was over the last 4 years.
Ha.
And people can actually look at that to decide where they stay.
Well, that's pretty clever.
Yeah. And obviously, the consumer interest in
Right.
areas like air quality and water quality is only increasing. And that's another area where this sector can really capitalize on these general market trends.
Fascinating. All right. So I have an idea for all my hotelier friends out there. Now, Dan, I don't know if you can or cannot assist with this, but there are a lot of hoteliers out there that have properties in, I'll say, tertiary and secondary markets that might have more additional land than they have hotel on. So why not take that?
Yep.
Why not take that extra land and convert it into an area where people could put up tents, where they could park their RVs, where you could maybe even build a couple of cabins depending on where your location is. I think that is a great opportunity for existing hoteliers to tap into a new market with little risk.
Absolutely. We've got various hotels around Europe which have added tree houses, yurts, teepees, and so on. And what often happens is that it'll suit different members of the family. So there might be
Right.
a couple within your... If you go away with a group of family and friends, there might be a couple who are, the Bear Grylls of their group, and they're absolutely obsessed with expeditions. They do the
Right.
wild camping part, or they stay in the teepee or the yurt. And then you've got people who want to sort of ease into it, and they might stay in a cabin or a treehouse or something, and then they'll come back and maybe bring their own tent.
Right. Yeah, I think that's terrific. And I think about it like when I was little and I would want to stay in a tent. So my dad would pitch a tent in the backyard, and then my mom would sleep on the couch in the house and watch me. I think about that as adults, hey, my teenage boys can go sleep in the campground part. I could sleep in the cozy room because that appeals to both of our sensibilities at the same time. I know this is outside your purview, but do you help with consulting and stuff like that for folks that might want to turn some land into a campground, or maybe point them toward resources?
We generally don't have a formal.
I didn't think so.
Like consulting
I know,
practice,
yeah.
but we do actually advise people on an ad hoc basis. So
right, cool.
In the UK, for example, there's an exemption from the law that allows you to open up for 28 days if you have spare land, and I believe there are similar provisions in the United States. So yes, that's definitely something that we try and help with where we can.
Yeah, that's cool. Makes sense. So what's interesting is when I was learning about the company, you're in all sorts of crazy places, Malawi, the Channel Islands, Serbia, just places that we didn't really think of in terms of camping. So what are some of the craziest places that people are enjoying camping now, and what are the types of experiences that they're enjoying?
So we have 65 countries now where we offer campgrounds, and some of the countries we have are Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia, Montenegro, even in Thailand, Malawi. So we've got some great places in Africa. I think 2 years ago we had 0 sites in Africa, and now we have them in almost 10 countries in Africa.
Wow.
They're very often really high-end safari lodges. So
right.
As you mentioned earlier, you can go and do that activity during the day, and then in the evening you can just come back and chill out, take a swim, have a meal in the middle of some fantastic safari resort.
That's for me, man, right there.
Yeah. That's for your fair weather campers.
Yes, exactly. That way I could come back from the trip and claim how rugged I was without actually having to put out any of that, any of that manliness out
exactly.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one other interesting thing that we had talked about prior to this was there's been changes to the booking process for federal land campsites in the United States.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I sure can. So I understand there's been recent changes to the booking process for federal land campsites in the United States.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's one of the big differences between Europe and the United States. Even though we have a similar number of campgrounds, about 25,000, about half of the campgrounds in the US are owned publicly. Now, as you may be aware, over the last decade or so, the website Reserve America has been funding those campsites, and recently that contract has terminated and been handed over to a new consortium under recreation.gov. They have just released the availability data for some of those public campgrounds, and there are companies, including ourselves, who are looking at how we can potentially use that data and help people in the States find it. Well, internationally to find a public campground. And we're very much hoping that the ability to book will also come in the near future, so that public campgrounds can offer the same benefits as private campgrounds,
Cool.
which are already available on these platforms.
Right. Awesome. Well, I hope that you could work out a deal that we could book, something
Absolutely.
at a major national park in the United States through your site. That would be really super cool. And I think a real win-win partnership between government and private enterprise at the same time.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been great to see the information being made public over the last period, and it's not just Canada I had a look at the figures before the call, and we've got some Canadian bookings for the US,
Yeah.
but also we've got a decent number from the United Kingdom, from Germany, from France, Spain, Italy, even Czechoslovakia. So you can see the demand is really there. We just need to make sure that the offer is available, and what's better than a national park campground?
Right. So it's amazing to me every time we discover something that has high demand to it that we haven't been leveraging the opportunity of. And this is an opportunity for all of you hoteliers out there to think about business a little bit differently, to really maximize your financial potential by creating something new that doesn't have to be super expensive, and then partnering with a company such as pitchup.com in order to make sure people can find you. So, Dan, before we wrap up today, why do you see yourselves as a tech company as opposed to a travel company?
I think really we see ourselves as a hybrid, but
Right.
what we're trying to do has such a technical underpinning, particularly with the fact that we're now integrated with so many booking systems around the world, that is very much the kind of substrate for the whole business.
Right.
So unless the website, and we've got this year we'll have over 20 million visits to our website. So unless that part of the business is working like clockwork, then really the whole thing just might as well not exist.
Right.
So we have a real focus on making sure we have the best possible technical platform, that our site is stable, that all the connections, because obviously we're selling real-time availability. We're not selling on-request bookings like some of the newer sites like HomeAway and so on. We're selling confirmed bookings. So we've got to make sure that information is accurate for the sake of all of our stakeholders. And so, yeah, the technical part's very important, and we try to be quite innovative in what we do. So, for example, we launched the mobile site, the smartphone website, 4 or 5 years ago, and we won the award for best travel sector mobile site in the UK that year. But, yeah, clearly we work in the travel market, and so we, particularly through our media relations, we've always got an eye on what are the up-and-coming destinations, what are the trends like the festival going and craft holidays and so on that might happen in each market. And we're pushing that angle as well.
Awesome. So where's all this headed to? What's your goal for the future?
For PitchUp, I'd like to see us really just continue to double down on the specialist and the specialist business that we've created. So we really want to stay focused on this sector, not least because it is very large, but also not just because it's very large, but also
Right.
because we believe there is still so much opportunity when you look at the business on a global basis. To continue to develop, to listen very carefully to our not just our campgrounds but also our customers. We're extremely led by the feedback received from both of them, and just to continually improve the website to provide a better service to the market.
Beautiful. Well, I love it. Pretty interesting stuff. Is there anything that I neglected to ask you about that you're burning to share with our audience today?
Well, we have just celebrated a milestone in the business, which
Yeah?
is that we've achieved a million bookings.
Hey, congratulations.
A couple of weeks ago, since we launched the company. So we had a bit of a celebration over here in London, and we're very much looking forward to the next million in a much shorter period, we hope.
Excellent. So how can people find you and connect with you? This is a chance I like all my guests to give a good shameless plug for yourself.
So the website is pitchup.com, which is www.pitchup.com. And on there you can find a contact page. So at the bottom of the page there's a link to our contact page, or you can drop us an email, which is inquiries, inquiries @pitchup.com.
Great.
We're also on social, Facebook and LinkedIn and so on, if people want to use those methods instead.
Beautiful. I love it. Dan, thank you so much for being here today. This has been absolutely terrific.
Great talking to you. Thanks very much.
Great. So, so I will say this is such an exciting thing because it's just opportunity that's waiting to be grabbed for each and every one of you hoteliers out there that might have some extra land around. I know I speak to a lot of you out there on the road. I know that you have the space. So think about maybe adding this new element to improve your business. All right. So thank you so much for listening to today's show. Join us at Traveling Glenn everywhere on social media. Make sure that you find me on iTunes, on Google Play, and wherever finer podcasts are, and give us that 5-star rating. Really appreciate it. It helps others that like this sort of content find our show easily and quickly so they can join the No Vacancy family as well. And that's it for today's show, and I will be back next week. That is, unless I decide to go find myself a yurt somewhere in Mongolia. See you all next time.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.